What's up, you guys? Tim Trevathan with Tim Trevathan Homes, and welcome to the new year. A new year means new real estate market predictions. And of course, if you've been following my channel, you know that I cover the Atlanta real estate market. So specifically, I'm going to dive in about the hyper-local market and what kind of predictions that we can see or foresee in this coming year. Let's take a look at these nationwide predictions, which I will put a spin on them to talk about the Atlanta real estate market. Let's dive in. Prediction number one, housing bubble alarmists will be proven wrong. Now, it goes without saying that there are plenty that advocate for an housing market increase in terms of home sales, home price growth, but then there's also the doomsdayers. And here's one that I actually follow on the platform X. And here's one thing that he said: baby boomers own 38% of homes in the United States, even though they only make up 21% of the population. 7,000 are dying per day. The point that he's trying to make here is that because of baby boomers owning so many of the homes in the United States and so many are dying, that means all of those homes are going to go on the market, increasing the inventory, thereby making the home prices go down because the demand can't keep up with it. Of course, we know there are a lot of other factors, but before I dive into that, let's take a look at another thing that he posted. Just a reminder, your house that was worth $462,107.54 at 2.7% interest rates is now worth $280,898.82 at 7% rates. Take this with a grain of salt, and certainly I don't see this in the Atlanta market. But yes, interest rates have a huge impact on the pricing of homes based on the demand that increases the prices or offsets it. So in the case of Atlanta, look, there's a lot of variables. And one thing I like to point out is there's wage growth, there's out-of-state buyers, and then there's also international buyers. And then the whole work from home, which I know with the pandemic ending now for 5 years, that it may not be so much that anymore. But one thing's for certain, there's a lot more factors that you have to include than just the interest rate. So again, take this doomsday with a grain of salt. And another thing I like to point out is that since interest rates spiked back in 2022, we are now almost a full 3 years in to this new cycle where I would have expected home prices to decrease quite a bit from this, but it hasn't. And that's because of the inventory being so low. Now, I know some people on the other side argue against it and say, well, look at the inventory now. It has increased. And in a lot of the metropolitan areas in the top 25 cities in America, several of them are now back up to pre-pandemic numbers, such as 2019 inventory levels, which some say is the benchmark for seeing where prices will go. And that means that the needle can move down more in terms of home prices. However, with Atlanta, like all real estate, it's local. It's not just regional or the entire country as a whole, although there are some good indicators. There's still things that we need to look at specifically with Atlanta. Now, in the previous video last week where I covered some other real estate predictions, one thing that I pointed out is that we have a lot of investor-owned properties. In fact, one of the highest in the country of around 33 to 35%. And because of that, a lot of the inventory is kept artificially low because those that own rental properties, they're not looking to sell. They want to continue to collect rental income. So those homes are no longer on the market and don't plan on coming back on the market anytime soon. And you've got investors who are out there trying to compete with other buyers. So that's another factor that could play into this whole housing bubble thing not being as alarming as you may think. Prediction number two, mortgage rates will remain elevated. So I did cover this in the last video, so I'm just gonna be short here, but we have seen some volatility with the rates for sure, where it went up from 3% back in 2021 all the way up to 7.5%, 8% I believe at one point in 2022, back down a little bit in 2023, and now we're hovering around 7%. There have been so many predictions a year ago where the rates were going to be down closer to around 6% this time, and we're not anywhere close to that. So it's hard to make a prediction, but all I'm gonna say is I don't think we're gonna see rates go down that much more. So it really depends on whether or not you want to buy a house because you need to buy a house, whether you're upsizing, downsizing, if you're going through some unfortunate event like the divorce, or if you're marrying and you got to consolidate. And so there's a lot of other reasons, or other reasons such as a job and relocation that demands home ownership, especially if you got a big family and you need that extra space. So despite what the interest rates will be, I think we're going to still see more buyers here in the Atlanta market. Prediction three, luxury market sales will not be affected by high mortgage rates. Yes, I can attest to that, as it has been going on here in the Atlanta real estate market. Some of the country clubs, if you look at Country Club of the South, St. Ives, St. Marlowe Country Club, Sugarloaf Country Club, The Manor, So many of these, the prices continue to go up and they continue to go under contract at record speed. Why? Because while the interest rates have gone up, which you would think would make the home more unaffordable, these luxury buyers are the ones buying in cash. So they're not affected by the interest rates. Therefore, you're still seeing prices elevated in these luxury markets. In fact, there's a stat that came out, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was an all-time number of homes now that are priced $1 million or higher in the Atlanta market. And we are at that peak right now. Prediction 4, home prices will grow by 2.6% on average. So I covered this in the other video, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper and look at some of the actual cities and pay attention to some of these forecasts here. If you look at the next 5 years forecasted for home price appreciation, and using Alpharetta, Georgia as an example here in Fulton County, the current median home price is $679,810. You can expect a cumulative 5-year gain of $130,420 for the city of Alpharetta if you own a home there. You can also see the affordability index, which is a 98, which is pretty low based on, again, home prices and the interest rates at an all-time high in the last 25 years. But there's other things too that you could take a look at, like homeowners and renters, the share that are renters versus homeowners. And you can see the demographics by age and the historical appreciation in Fulton County. Again, this is the entire county. So North Fulton a lot of times takes over as far as the home price values go. They're a lot higher in North Fulton versus South Fulton. So that's why this amount may be skewed a bit. If we take a look at Beaufort, Georgia, you can see a 5-year cumulative forecast gain of $97,296. In Cumming, you can see $129,535. Decula, $103,000. Houston, $116,000. Johns Creek, $145,000. Great schools over there, a lot of demand. Loganville, $80,206. Peachtree Corners, $128,000. Great location there with 285 and 85. Suwanee, been a huge hit. One of the top suburbs here in the last few years, been making headwinds in the news articles. $139,000 price forecast appreciation. And then there's so many other cities with that kind of appreciation as well. Another thing to point out is that there was a poll done by buyers and sellers being asked, what do you think the 2025 market's going to be like compared to the 2024 market? And here it says 87% of home buyers and sellers expect buyer demand to be same or higher than in 2024. I could say from personal experience, who I'm working with in terms of clientele right now, prospectively in the future, is that I've got a lot of buyers coming off the fence because they have waited for interest rates to come down. And for the last 3 years, they haven't. They're telling me, Tim, I'm tired of waiting. We want to own a home. So we're going to go ahead and jump off that fence and buy a home. And if we look at the 2025 housing forecast, this is by Realtor.com. This is probably the most telling chart that I'm going to be showing you here in this video. And this has to do with the existing home sales and price growth expectations for all of 2025. You can see there, Atlanta, Georgia is in the top 10. And again, this is the top 100 largest US metros in America. So Atlanta topped the list in the top 10 there. Of course, Atlanta is not just the city of Atlanta. If you're out of state and you're watching this for the first time, we talk about Atlanta being the metro area, covering a lot of ground, a lot of square miles that reaches all the way to the northwest side of Sandy Springs, to the far north Alpharetta area, and as far east as Gwinnett and Hall County in the northeast area. And of course, further south past the airport and so on and so forth. So you can see here, we've got 2025 existing home sale counts year over year of 15.1%. Existing home sale counts versus the average of the years 2017 through 2019 is negative 7.7%. Now that one's an interesting one because the way I analyze that, if you look at the top 10, Atlanta is the only one other than Colorado Springs that has a negative percentage. And what I think it is people who have moved to Atlanta buy their home and then they don't decide to sell because they love living in Atlanta. You got less people moving out of Atlanta than there are moving in. And so because of that, you've got a negative growth compared to 2017, 2019, when that was a time when a lot of people were moving, but since then they have settled in. So that's why we see a negative percentage. And then we got an existing home median sales price year over year of 10.2%, and then an existing home median sales price versus again, the averages of 2017 through 2019, when this is before COVID, before the housing shortage and things like that, that is a whopping 51.9%. But the stat, which they calculated, averaged it out cumulatively, the stat to really pay attention to is that last right-hand column, the combined 2025 existing home sales and price growth, which is 25.3%. So in other words, we should be seeing this year more homes sold compared to 2024 and higher prices compared to 2024. So there have been a lot of markets where we didn't see necessarily a decrease in home values last year, although there were some like that, but it was more along the lines of just modest growth, like 1 or 2%, or some that were higher, but it was the ones that had to do with location and great school districts. To me, this forecast tells me a couple things. One, people want to move to Atlanta, whether it's because of the schools or the jobs or the amenities, the parks and recreation, the fine dining, the restaurants, different kinds of options and things to do, as well as safetiness, cleanliness, and a great place to raise a family. Another thing it tells me is that if you move here, I think you're in good hands in terms of resale value, building equity in your home, and really settling in and calling Atlanta your home and seeing that this city is not prone to some of the mistakes that we've seen in other cities where things grew too fast at a level where it was unsustainable, such as Austin, Texas, where you now see a 20% decline in home prices. Prediction number 5, housing inventory will rise. We've already talked about this. There's several reasons why, so I'm not going to go into it, but I will say that inventory is rising mainly because there are a lot of homes that are sitting on the market longer because they aren't move-in ready condition. The houses that sell are the ones that are in move-in ready condition. I always say every house is competing in 2 contests, a pricing contest and a beauty contest. If the house isn't selling, it's usually one of 2 things or both, and that is that the home price needs to come down, lower the price. And the second thing is it needs renovations. There's a lot of remodeling that needs to be done inside the home. And you might be wondering, well, why would a buyer not want to buy a home that's not renovated? They may get a good deal and maybe cheaper. Here's the thing, the problem is a lot of people, they don't want to buy a house where they have to do the renovations. Number one, they have to pay out of pocket versus a home that's already renovated. While they may be paying higher price for the house price itself, it's built into the loan over 30 years versus an out-of-pocket expense, which they have to pay after closing. And also the second thing is that the remodeling is already done. They don't have to do it themselves. They don't have to call a contractor, get quotes, find the person to do the work. In a lot of ways, they can't move into the house until it's done, or they're at home while they're getting work done and it's very inconvenient. So those are some of the reasons why those are the homes, move-in ready condition, are the ones that are really gonna sell. But the problem is there's a lot that aren't like that, and that's why more inventory is sitting on the market. Case in point, just the other day, I went and showed a client some homes in Suwanee, North Gwinnett High School District, one of the most sought after ones that's in the Metro Atlanta area right now. And these home prices were in the $700,000 to $850,000 range. About 80% of those homes that I showed in the last week all had so many things that needed to be worked on. Whether it was completely new carpet on the second floor, or hardwoods that need to be completely replaced with new ones, or a new paint job. I mean, basic things such as carpet, hardwood, and paint that could go a long way, these homeowners were not doing for whatever reason. Either they're lazy, they don't have the money, or they just think they can sell the house in the current condition. Prediction number 6, new construction will gain market share and buyer incentives will continue. Yes, I could definitely say this is true and will continue to happen in 2025 here in Atlanta. We are, I believe, in the top 7 as far as the most new construction being built out of all the major metropolitan cities in America. So we're getting more inventory that comes from new construction. At the same time, some are building in areas that people don't want to be in. I'll give you another case in point. I've got one client, they're looking to buy a home in Loganville, and quite frankly, they don't want to pick that area to live in. But the only reason why is because to find a single family, new construction home priced below $500,000 in Metro Atlanta in a good location, good school district is very hard to find. So in order to get to around that level, actually they had to come up on the price to $550,000. Not a big jump, but still a jump nonetheless. They had to go out a little bit further to Loganville to find it, when typically you could go in the heart of Duluth, Suwanee, and Beaufort and areas like that where the prices there for new construction were around $450 to $500 just a few years ago. Now you can't in those good school districts. So people are branching out to further areas. Parkside at Grayson is a good example. And those schools are actually good. Grayson High School, great school, but it's the location people don't want because there's not much as far as things to do there. There's a lot of woods, country land, so to speak. And even when I went there to Parkside at Grayson, about 3 minutes down the street, they had this giant Kroger, which was nice to have, but they just broke ground and just opened, meaning you can see that there's a lot of development going on that still needs to take place to attract people to come move there. So if you go look at Parkside at Grayson, which Meritage Homes is one of my favorite builders, they got really nice homes, the foam installation that no other builders do, creates all that high efficiency ratings. That community has incredible incentives. I mean, every house right now has got about 50 to 60,000 in incentives, whether it's a price drop or taking some of that money, buying down an interest rate, or basically giving credit towards closing costs, or a combination of all of that. Prediction 7, home sales will increase next year, totaling on average about 4.47 million sales. Well, the following sentence to that says the housing market is set to close 2024 with just 4 million home sales nationwide, the slowest pace since the 2008 financial crisis. So that's an easy prediction. I mean, we just had the lowest, as it said, since 2008, so it's only up from here, right? I can't imagine there being less home sales this coming year after bottoming out last year. Some may see this as a bad thing, and in some ways I would say that the reason why we've had home sales at an all-time low is, again, it's because of the affordability, the higher interest rates that we're in this kind of environment. But I think it's up from here. Again, there's a lot of buyer sentiment and desire to move because people have already waited. There's some that have now been able to save up for a down payment. There are others that are able to qualify for more because, especially those that are on 1099, perhaps they had a better year income-wise in 2024 versus 2023. So there's a lot of different factors like that. Also, I'm still talking to tons of people outside of Atlanta. People that are watching videos just like this that are calling me, and I've been helping people from Los Angeles, Seattle, Las Vegas, Denver, Colorado, even Milwaukee, Wisconsin, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Dallas, Texas, all over the place that they're moving here. So there's always gonna be that pool of buyers that need to move rather than want to move. And what I mean by that is people that they're not just wanting in terms of investment or speculation. These are people that truly need a home for whatever reason. Like I mentioned before, like upsize, downsize, marriage, divorce, relocation of job, and so on and so forth. Prediction 8, and this is the last one. Many investors are going to buy at least one more property next year. Although I'm a real estate agent, I am also a real estate investor myself, and I've already done that. I did my investment last year in 2024 in June. There's two ways in which you could do it in case you're interested in investing, and this is the approach that I took. So you can either do 5% down and move into that home as your primary residence, and the home that you previously owned that you moved from, you can in turn rent that one out. That is the case what I did, except because of the home prices and the interest rates being where they're at, I actually did 20% down payment. But from a mortgage standpoint to get qualified, 5% is all you need. The other way is if you don't want to move out of the home that you're currently living, if you already own, is to do the 20% down option and buy a home as an investment. Now, what I'm seeing in terms of the monthly mortgage payment versus the rental income, if you look at the rental comps in any given neighborhood in any city, you really are gonna have to be closer to 25 to 30% down payment to start seeing a surplus in terms of mortgage rental income. So if you want that net profit, that cash flow, so to speak, that's the kind of down payment you're looking for. And again, this is a long-term play. Again, investment, I know we want to see those quick gains, which some people have seen through the stock market, but it's not like that with real estate. It's a long-term gain, but it's definitely, those options are still around. They exist, but they're a little bit harder to find, but I can help you with that too. So if you have any questions, drop a question in the comment section below. Anything related to the real estate market, predictions, questions, things that you may want to know more about, get more insight about the Atlanta real estate market, please feel free to leave a comment below. I will answer all of them directly. Until then, catch you on the next video. I got a lot of great content coming this year, so I'll see you on the next one.